A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, it is a dark time for the rebellion. Although the Death Star has been destroyed, Imperial troops have driven the rebel forces from their hidden base and pursued them across the galaxy. Evading the dreaded Imperial Starfleet, a group of freedom fighters led by Luke Skywalker have established a new secret base on the remote ice world of Hoth. The evil Lord Darth Vader, obsessed with finding young Skywalker, has dispatched thousands of remote probe droids into the far reaches of space.
Hello there, and welcome back to 6 Degrees of Star Wars, the podcast where we explore all the ways that George Lucas's flagship franchise surrounds us, binds us, and penetrates us in the landscape of cinema. I'm your host, Sam Marcioni. Joining me today is Grady Smithy.
Hi, I was alive when the original theatrical run of this thing was going on, which means that I was born a long time ago in a hospital far, far away.
And Brian Harris.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
Pray she does not alter it further.
So, because our friends are complete bullies, we're covering another Degree Zero. We're doing Empire Strikes Back, and, this is my least favorite of the original trilogy.
Really?
Really.
Huh.
Do tell.
This is most people's favorite.
I want to get into it as we go on, but the best way I can put it is that I think an issue that a lot of people have with Attack of the Clones is that it feels like it's two movies where one movie is clearly better than the other, and they don't blend together that well. And I feel like Empire has that problem as well, except there's one side that I'm significantly less invested in for a very specific reason, and a lot of that reason is Harrison Ford. I'm on the record as being anti-belligerent sexual tension and a lot of Harrison Ford in general. And so, spending a lot of time with Han and Leia does not necessarily make a good time for me.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't really care about the relationships in Star Wars. So I just sort of, gloss over it like, oh, this is happening. Han Solo's being a dick to Leia again.
I guess I just don't get why people say that that's attractive. I mean, I did grow up in the era of, oh, if a boy is teasing you, that means he likes you. It's bullshit. Maybe the boy likes me, but that doesn't mean I have to reciprocate his bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, it does get more interesting once they get to Cloud City and there's Lando there. And
yeah, Bespin, I guess you could argue, is like the start of Han's himbofication, but it doesn't really come to fruition until Return of the Jedi. He has to hibernate on it, shall we say.
Yeah, Lucas was trying to recreate the experience that he had as a kid going to the movies and seeing all the things that he saw on Saturday mornings. And the belligerent sexual tension was so very established a trope during the point where he would have done that it just got kind of baked into his incursioner's DNA.
Especially now that we know everything we know about Carrie Fisher and Harrison and what he did to her. And I hold that he did do it to her, because when you're 10 years older than a 19-year-old, I'm sorry, you bear the responsibility.
I'm not fully aware of what happened between them.
Okay, in 2016, Carrie Fisher published a memoir of her time making Star Wars based on the diaries that she kept, and she revealed that she and Harrison were having an affair. They had an affair during the making of the first Star Wars, and it started in part when she was drunk and 19, and it was a destructive sort of thing. At one point they were going to get married, and he was promising that he would leave his wife for her. It was not a good time. I highly recommend the audiobook version of it, because it's devastating in places. And Carrie actually posthumously won a Grammy for it.
Yeah, it seems like they had a complicated relationship.
Yeah, and Harrison Ford has basically declined to comment on the whole thing, mostly because of Carrie drowning in moonlight strangled by her own bra.
Yeah.
I miss her.
One of the true greats, both in front of the camera and behind the keyboard.
We can talk more about the Han and Leia of it all, but another thing is that, to me, maybe this is just my autistic ass not being able to deal with time dilation, but to me, it seems like Han and Leia's plotline is very short in time, and Luke's is like a couple weeks, and I'm like, does not track, and it's kind of like the same problem that I have with The Last Jedi, because it's like, how long is Rey on Ahch-To with Luke while they're running around Cantabite? And
we are not talking about The Last Jedi.
I'm sorry. Okay, actually, you know what? This just seems to be a bug of every single second movie in the Star Wars trilogy. The time dilation is screwy as fuck.
Yeah, they leave it vague as to exactly how long Luke is there, but it does feel like he has spent more time on Dagobah than the other two have spent on Bespin, now that you pointed out.
I do want to know where he's getting a dry cleaner, though, because his fatigues on Bespin look absolutely fantastic, and I really just have to ask.
Say, Luke, who's your tailor? I love that outfit.
I don't get people who say Luke Skywalker is not hot, because in those fatigues, like, they are tailored, and he looks great, like...
It's your standard bad boy, not bad boy thing.
He's cute, okay? He's very, very cute. And, you know, sometimes you need the bad boy and the not bad boy to snuggle together inside a giant mammalian lizard.
Are you talking about the, like, tank top that he wears on Dagobah?
I am kind of talking about the tank top, but I'm also talking about, like, the jacket that goes over the tank top. The outfit he's wearing when he fights Vader that gets trashed to hell. It looks very good on him. It's very well tailored.
The remark about Mark's appearance does remind me, it is kind of interesting how I have to wonder if Mark Hamill hadn't been in a car crash that required reconstructive surgery on his face, would we have gotten the whole the Wampa Cave sequence? Because
probably not.
Yeah, because he looked...
I think Luke probably would have just, like, passed out in the snow or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, speaking as a New Englander whose home turns into Hoth every year, like, I don't understand how Han's going around with the lower half of his face exposed, or anybody's going around with the lower half of their face exposed and not, like, having their whole face freeze off. I'm sorry, you're getting frostbite. It's cold out.
It was written and directed by people from California.
California has snow. Just ask the Donner Party.
So Luke survived because Han opened up the Tauntaun.
Little fuel for the Sky Solo shippers. A little fuel for that.
Oh god, there was only one Tauntaun.
There was only one Tauntaun.
I liked it, though.
So I have this private list on Letterboxd, and it's labeled, I recognize that this is a good movie. I never want to see it again. On that list includes movies like Tar, and Nope, and The Godfather. And Empire, I don't think would be on this list, but there's some jankiness to it that I can't fully resolve. I'm not, let's say, on the level of Nancy and Tracy Duncan, who at one point ran a zine called Against the Sith. Have you read their statement on it? Because it's kind of wild.
It's epic.
I have not heard of it, so...
Okay,
no.
I just found... So let me see if I can get the tone quite right. Dear readers, it has been decided by the editors to cease publication of Against the Sith and the other fan publications. ATS number 10, Star Wars Journey 11, A Ray of Hope, and Crude Matter will not be published. Enclosed with this announcement are all refunds. See below. Over the past months, it has become increasingly clear to us that we cannot continue publishing a fanzine for a movie in which we find so little to recommend. We still stand by everything we felt in our first letter to fandom in May, but would word it differently now. Since then, we thought we could fool ourselves, try hard to accept the film, and put out 2 more issues, 8 and 9, but we realized we weren't having much fun. Not only has this film fractured individual fans' emotions, fandom is fractured. Judging from feedback on numbers 8 and 9, most people are confused and much less enthusiastic about TESB than they were about SW. The questionnaires sent back to us had such diverse answers on all the subjects listed that it proved to us that no one has any clear idea of what the film is really all about. At this point, judging from the contradictory statements from the film creators, we're not sure they know what they're doing either. We know a lot of fans have accepted TESB, but we wonder how much they really love it as they loved Star Wars. For us, TESB left out the most important ingredient, love, from which flowed an innocent sense of fun. Without this, the film is appealed zero. It is not for us any great piece of literature, philosophy, or religion. The filmmakers took themselves too seriously, and fandom is following suit. It happened in Star Trek, and when this happens, we split. We kept this zine going mainly because of our readers' wishes. Most seemed to care more about ATS and whether or not it was coming out than what its editors thought one way or the other about the sequel. We were highly flattered by this, believe us, but we just cannot go on with a project if we find the subject so lacking. To us, TESB is a dead thing with no life. We are not the only fans, fan editors, or SW enthusiasts who have jumped ship either. Several prominent zine editors have let us know their misgivings, and at least 2 others have washed their hands of the sequel and the future of the SW saga. Life is more than movies. I fear there are some fans who don't realize this, but all of you out there, I hope, will understand our move. We thank our readers for their contribution, enthusiasm, and support of ATS these past 2.5 years. It was fun while it lasted, while it could last. Now we seek new horizons, better horizons. Thank you, one and all, friends, critics, and various beings. May God, the one true force, guide you. Go in peace, Nancy and Tracy.
That last line kind of clarifies like everything that comes before it, you know?
I know, but it's just such a...
It's the sort of thing that you read and you want to say, but what do you really think?
I have to know how these people felt when it was the prequels and Anakin Skywalker became Space Jesus. Like, what the... Because I'm not going to say there's no love in Empire Strikes Back, and I will continue carrying my flag of, I don't think that Leia being Luke's sister was planned at this point.
Oh, no.
A, because of Sweet Home Alabama. But also, like, that everybody talks about the kiss on Hoth, but she does another one after Bespin. Like, he's tucked into bed, recovering from, you know, all the trauma, and she gives him a kiss on the lips, and I'm like, okay, they really had no fucking clue what they were doing with Leia, because she had the big I love you with Han, but she also clearly still loves Luke in some capacity.
Yeah, the whole, you know, Darth Vader being Luke's father, like, I get where that sort of came from, but the whole, like, Luke and Leia being twins thing, I don't know what the purpose behind that was.
I mean, I know there were originally drafts where Luke had a sister training off on a different planet or something, and they would have picked her up. I don't remember if it was, like, budget issues or a runtime issue, but that was cut and it's like, fuck, we only have one significant female character in this franchise who isn't an adult.
I got a theory on that one. I think that it was written trying to keep it open-ended as to which one is Leia going to end up with, because this is the 70s and you don't get to have thruples in major media things.
Boo!
They just saw the chemistry that Harrison and Carrie had and decided, all right, this is going to be the official couple. And they're like, oh shit, what are we going to do about Luke? Well, we'll make her his sister, and that would make anything between them icky. Problem solved.
But, like, Luke doesn't need a love interest.
You just unleashed a legion of Mara Jade fans. They're coming for your head. They are coming for you.
Whether or not Luke needs a love interest, though.
His journey in the original trilogy does not necessitate a love interest. I mean, you could argue that's the same for any of them, but Luke especially. Like, I'm fine with Luke marrying someone in the future, but...
I mean, that is also just part of the problem of, again, they don't seem to know what the fuck to do with Leia.
Yeah.
Leia is a feminist icon, but it's also still the 70s, and so it's like, girl is for rescue and girl is for kiss?
It's not whether or not Luke needed a love interest. It's that a lot of us who were around when it was just Star Wars, one movie, you know, we were shipping the hell out of Luke and Leia, and they had to do something about that. And so, like, well, hopefully, if we make them siblings, all those folks will be like, well, all right, fine. This is fine.gif.
Right, like, if Leia and Han are together, you know, if they weren't, if Luke and Leia were not made siblings, then they would be just friends, right?
Well, I mean, this was pre when Harry met Sally, but yeah, I think most people were operating under the illusion that men and women cannot be friends without sex getting in the way, and my little ace ass is over here being like, oh, really? Really? Really?
In the first movie, they're building up a lot of romantic chemistry between Luke and Leia, and that has to be dealt with somehow because they set the expectations. Now they have to manage those expectations, and the easiest way to do a clean break is like, nope, siblings.
Ugh.
It was the 70s. People needed to learn a lot still at that point. Some of them hopefully did.
One person who has definitely not learned his lessons is C-3PO. C-3PO will never change, and we don't want him to change. Goddamn 3PO. You're a messy fucking bitch. I was searching for a segue, any segue, so... It's definitely interesting when George Lucas does not have the framework of the Hidden Fortress and he has to figure out stuff to do with R2 and 3PO, and he's like, I can find uses for R2. I'll send him off with Luke, but then poor 3PO is just, like, futzing around with Han and Leia, and the best thing he does is to break off that assaulty feeling kiss.
Isn't this the first movie written by Lawrence Kasdan?
Lawrence Kasdan and Leigh Brackett.
Right.
And Kasdan would stay on, but Brackett kind of didn't. And it's definitely interesting, especially because, like, I could be wrong, but I think she's the only woman to have worked on a Star Wars screenplay.
Well, outside of TV, I guess. But
yep, only woman. Only woman credited as a writer on a Star Wars movie. Great job, Lucasfilm. You're doing great.
Yeah, it really makes you question the whole, like, Han and Leia fighting throughout this whole movie.
I fully believe that Carrie and Harrison's personal lives was kind of leaking into it in that natural chemistry or whatever, but I also think, like, Han and Leia do nothing but bicker with each other in the first movie. So they're like, okay, we have to acknowledge that, so we're just gonna do that thing of, like, oh, she's just mad because she likes him.
Okay.
And I do love the scene in Hoth where they're standing in the hallway and arguing, and some people are just like, excuse me, coming through, because it gives such the sense that this is a regular thing. Commander Solo and the princess are fighting. It must be Tongs Day.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing, too, because they're like, it's a very tight hallway, and these people are just trying to do their day jobs, and Han and Leia are having their little fight in the middle of it.
Fine, the two of you hate each other. I still gotta get my sandwich.
This movie also had has some of the biggest breakout characters that I've seen in fandom for having very little lines. It's a pre-Phil Coulson thing, but, like, Captain Piet and Wedge Antilles both get so much attention now in the fandom, and I'm like, where did this come from exactly? What is it about these two that people like? I mean, it's super cool that Dennis Lawson is actually related to Ewan McGregor, so that's a fun connection. I think he's Ewan's uncle, but, like, why did everybody get so attached to Piet?
In all fairness, this is a fandom that made the ice cream machine guy have an epic backstory.
Don't talk smack about Ice Cream Guy. I like Ice Cream Guy. He's a fun little side character. I don't need backstory. Not everything needs backstory.
The Star Wars fandom are obsessive to a level that I, an obsessive person, find astonishing. Speaking about breakout characters, though, I would like to say, as someone who was around watching the saga unfold in real time, that when Boba Fett comes on, live action for the first time, there was a great disturbance in the fandom, as though the expectation of millions of small children and young adults were being set, only to be fucking crushed one movie later. Because we had the animated bit in the holiday special that established this guy's a badass. Oh my god, it's amazing. That's the coolest arm ever. And then he comes in here and he's the one person that can actually mouth off to Vader and not get murdered immediately. He's like, okay, yeah, I don't care if you're a Lord of the Sith. I have a paycheck and you are threatening it, and I will throw hands if I have to. And then in the next movie, he gets killed by a blind guy in a ditch. Sorry, had to get that out of my system.
I mean, in his defense, Vader doesn't necessarily kill you instantaneously because sometimes you have to account for the Skype delay in the call.
True.
That's a badass moment, killing a man over Skype. God knows I've been in enough Zoom meetings where I've wanted to do that. This could have been an email. And we get our first sight of Vader in the egg! The evil egg of doom! I know it's a hyperbaric chamber. I'm an Anakin Skywalker fan. Of course, I've read fan fiction that involves the hyperbaric chamber and him and Padme getting up to shenanigans in there. We don't have to go into it.
So what is the purpose of that?
It's basically a compressed space where he gets pure oxygen that he can actually breathe, so it's like the one place where he can take his helmet off.
Oh, okay, and that's why we see, like, the back of his head.
Yeah, because we need that big dramatic setup that Vader is not just scary robot man.
He's more burn scars than man now.
Scary cyborg man. I have to assume that was David Prowse's head, so I think now is a good time to talk about the David Prowse of it all. Because god damn, what a messy saga. So we were doing like a little digging about this, and so we confirmed that James Earl Jones was nothing but gracious in all of this. Like, he refused credit partially because he didn't want to get typecast in his voice acting as like a sci-fi guy, but he also wanted to make sure David Prowse got his due. And David Prowse was incredibly immature about some of the stuff that happened. Like, I think he was justified in being mad that Lucasfilm dubbed him and whatnot, even if I think they were justified. Because have you heard David Prowse do the lines?
I think I've heard it, like some guy doing it, like, English accent.
He's got a Bristolian accent. It doesn't sound great.
This ship carries the crest of Alderaan. Was there any of the royal family on board? Who were you carrying?
But there is a story about the promotional shoots for Empire. And David Prowse, while he did the majority of the suit work for Vader, did not do the fight scenes. Those were done by Swordmaster Bob Anderson, who is an absolute icon and legend. But David Prowse wanted to do the promotional shoots to make it seem like he was the one doing the combat. And I'm like, David, do you understand how this is a bit hypocritical of you? Like, you're really mad that somebody else is getting credited for the performance you're doing, so you're now trying to take credit for somebody else's performance?
David is altering the hypocrisy. Pray he does not alter it further.
My God, Grady. I mean, he is, in the vacuum of a performance, he's still doing what he is good at doing, which is being a big, scary motherfucker.
The guy's imposing physicality is amazing in these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Which begs the question, what was Vader gonna do if Luke didn't show up? Like, I know we all knew Luke was gonna show up because that Skywalker disaster DNA has to go somewhere, but...
I mean, I think he still would have kept his deal, or he may have altered the deal. You have to pray that it doesn't alter that further.
He still would have put Han Solo in the ice tray and have him get hauled off and taken Leia and Chewbacca and used them as bait to bring Luke to wherever he was. Because as a Skywalker and the father of a Skywalker, he knows the only reason why Luke wouldn't show up to Bespin is if there's someplace even more dramatic for him to go try and rescue his friends.
I will say, the dialogue that Yoda has... Like, the prequels both help it and hurt it in some places, but my favorite thing is, like, Yoda's like, reckless he is, and I can just imagine Obi-Wan being like, I jumped out a fucking window to catch a droid that shot out some bugs.
From you, he learned it.
There is a reason that whole lineage is called the disaster lineage.
Speaking of Yoda, for years I didn't know what Yoda sounded like, but I knew who the character was, and I knew what he looked like, but I don't know, when I thought he would sound like a wise old mentor, and then
he's halfway between Fozzie Bear and Miss Piggy.
Yeah, exactly. See, for me, this is the one thing about Empire that bothers me, is when we first meet Yoda, and he's acting like a gremlin, like going through Luke's stuff and being like, ooh, what's this light? Flashlight.
I love that.
And I'm like, sir, you were on the Jedi Council, and you were a general in the Old Republic. Why are you...
Because he's been alone for 20 years with nothing but his thoughts and a ghost.
Also, there is another reason. Just as Kurosawa inspired the original Star Wars, Lucas's inspiration here is clearly all the eccentric old masters in martial arts movies who try to drive the student away by acting like they're tiny little weird gremlins. Because if they don't have the fortitude to put up with that nonsense, they don't really deserve the training. But yes, also that 2 decades of complete isolation where it's just him and the frogs. And also the seagulls that are pecking him on the head.
Stop it, please.
Also, it's kind of interesting that the actual Muppet Yoda looks less like a puppet than the hologram of the Emperor when he's Skyping with Vader in that one scene.
Isn't that a woman? Like, they put a woman in, like, weird baggy prosthetics and dubbed it over with an actor who is not Ian McDiarmid?
That seems pretty plausible, because, like, I was watching that scene where he's Skyping with the Emperor, and I'm like, didn't he used to, like, be like, Order 66 or whatever, you know? He was like old man voice, and then, I don't know, in this movie, he's got like weird goggles on or something, and like, he sounds like not like a crotchety old man.
They hadn't cast the actual Emperor yet.
What?
The choice
so
that they
stupid,
made
though.
in the third movie was the perfect idea for the Emperor. They just hadn't gotten there mentally yet, I guess.
Huh.
Yep.
By the way, we should mention that we watched the despecialized edition.
We did watch the despecialized edition, and honestly, I think there are pros and cons. The reason that we go with the despecialized editions for the original trilogy, is because we're trying to get close to that original theater experience as we can. There are some things to the special edition that I think are debatably worthwhile, and one of those is the idea of letting the actors who were solidified step in. I know that the special editions have Ian McDiarmid fill in that role. And I don't know, a small part of my brain is like, yes, consistency. I like this. But I don't want to erase the hard work that was done by the original people.
Marjorie Eaton and Clive Revel.
Thank you, especially Marjorie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't imagine how weird an experience that was. And meanwhile, over in the corner, we have Alec Guinness continuing to not give a fuck.
Oh, shit, George. You really put that clause in the contract? Well, fine.
Killing me off was supposed to get me out of these movies.
Yeah, that's what Harrison thought in this one, too.
Yep. Nobody dies in Star Wars unless you're Carrie Fisher, or Padme Amidala, or Shmi Skywalker. Rule of thumb, don't be a woman that Skywalkers care about.
It is interesting to me that Ian McDiarmid has been playing the Emperor for the past 40 years, so they really had to like put him in old age makeup in Return of the Jedi. But this episode's not about Return of the Jedi.
We shouldn't be talking about Ian McDiarmid at all. He's not in this movie.
This is
Ian
10.
who? We said from the point of view of the before the third movie came out.
Yep.
Which is, of course, a certain point of view.
That is also not here yet, but there is so much certain point of viewing in this movie, like, goddamn.
On the certain point of view thing, there was one thing I wanted to mention that I loved. Everything Yoda tells Luke before he reveals that he's Yoda, he's framing it so that this impetuous kid will think that it's just nonsense or a lie, but is absolutely truthful. Like when the dinner scene, when Yoda's across the house and Luke asks, when will we see Yoda? And says, be here soon, he will, as he's walking over to meet with Luke.
That little troll.
Yeah, it's just the dialogue and the way that you have to reconsider all of it after you get to the revelation is just beautifully done, and Frank Oz is acting the hell out of it.
Let's give some credit to Mark Hamill, too, because it's not an easy thing to act with a puppet.
Oh, yeah.
Because if I'm remembering the setup correctly, they had to have, like, this whole rig setup of being up on a platform, and Frank was underneath in the Yoda area, but there was, like, a microphone feeding Mark the lines in an earpiece because he couldn't hear Frank actually speaking.
So it's also a testament to ILM pulling off the challenges required.
Practical effects.
Yeah.
They're so cool. They're so cool. This has Phil Tippett animatronics. I don't care about the pew pew space battles in Star Wars, but even I can appreciate the AT-AT walkers going down like boom.
And you gotta admire the fact that they set up something that looks so cool and then are immediately willing to make how utterly, stupidly impractical it is a major plot point.
You think about all the time they put into building them, and then they have to destroy them, so they probably had to build multiples.
Those AT-ATs, I mean, they're so impractical. Like, we don't build giant machines with, like, 4 legs.
Are the 2 legs really any better, though?
The 2 legs, okay. I forget what they're called.
ATST.
ATST. Okay. At least the way that they're animated, it looks like they have some sort of like gyroscope that like self-balances. Plus they're smaller than the AT-ATs, so it doesn't seem like they can fall from a great height like the AT-ATs.
But they both have that same vulnerability of, like, somebody could absolutely grappling hook themselves up into it and then toss a grenade inside and be able to get away real easy.
There's a reason we don't build tanks with 4 legs.
True.
Unless, I was thinking about like you'd have to build them like the Boston Dynamics robots.
Oh god, those things!
Yeah.
Those things.
The Roboguns.
Out of universe, you've got George Lucas thinks it looks cool. In universe, you've got the fact that the only bigger drama queen in the entirety of all the sagas that ever were or ever will be in this universe, the only one who's a bigger drama queen than Anakin Skywalker in that setting is Sheev Falking Palpatine.
We have a brand and we will stick to it, god damn it!
I don't care if it's practical. I want it to look cool and freak people out.
I will say, if only the Sith deal in absolutes, there's a fucking lot of absolutes being handed out by Obi-Wan and Yoda about once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny and all that bullshit. You have a sample size of 1. You have a sample size of 1 person going from the light side to the dark side. Because this is before we've canonically introduced Mace Windu and the whole Vapad Form 7 stuff. Please don't correct me about that. I don't have time to read all the books.
Yeah, do or do not, there is no try. Sounds a lot like an absolute.
It isn't, though. That's a line that I feel the need to defend. It is Yoda's way of telling Luke, kid, if you let yourself get wrapped up in your head, you are going to cause yourself to fail. Get out of your own way. Let the thing that you need to happen. And Luke's greatest his greatest weakness is his lack of faith. In this instance, he doesn't have faith in his own ability to lift the X-Wing, and because he doesn't believe he can't. And so Yoda's saying, don't worry about can't you, just do it. If you let yourself do it and get out of your own way, you can do it. I mean, look, I'm like the size of a small plush toy. Here's your ship back.
And then I like the those 2 lines that come after that where Luke says, I don't believe it, and Yoda says, and that's why you fail.
Yep.
We were being a little facetious before, but this is a great introduction for Yoda, but it's also, like, it's really good in terms of being, like, foreshadowing, I guess you could call it, for, like, Yoda's own failings of not being able to comprehend the possibility of compassion. Or, does anybody have a good Dominic Toretto impression?
Family?
Family.
The Family Strikes Back, which in the Star Wars case is very fucking lit.
Star Wars is just a franchise about one family's drama ruining everybody else's day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, I do love the fact that while Yoda and Ben are wiser than Luke in some ways, neither of them can see any result from Luke going to Bespin other than Luke becoming corrupted and becoming Vader's new apprentice because of their own failures clouding their judgment, and also the fact that neither of them can quite assume that there's a possibility that Luke's just going to yeet himself into a trash compactor rather than go to the dark.
There's also just, this is another thing that the whole Leia reveal kind of undermines. Like, no, there is another hope, and Luke's going off to save her right now.
So that's what I did want to ask. Obi-Wan says Luke is our last hope, and Yoda says no, there is another one. Who is he referring to?
He's referring to Luke's sister. And at the time, Luke's sister was not Leia. Luke's sister was somebody else. I think her name was like Nerith or something. And she would have been, I don't know, on Felucia with Shakti or something, because Shakti keeps dying and coming back. I don't know. It's a whole thing in Legends, but
And then thankfully, when they were writing the third movie, they realized that they can't just pull a character that major out of nothing and have them appear that late into the story.
I don't know. Rise of Skywalker did it.
Ah!
It had to be done.
I feel bad that we haven't really talked about the man, the myth, the legend, the Lando Calrissian. Billy Dee Williams is so fucking good.
You can't spell Calrissian without Riz.
Hey.
Such a great character, and played so beautifully.
He's so charming. He's so fun. And there's so much going into his performance. Like, I'm sorry, he's more compelling than Harrison Ford.
Well, yeah, because Harrison Ford, we know what side he's on at all time. Lando is switching sides about 3 times per scene.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, complex thing, because, like, yeah, Lando's a criminal, but also, like, he's built a community and a refuge, and fuck the Empire. And now, like, Han shows up with the one thing Lando doesn't want, but this is his friend, but also there's a murder robot being like, no, I'm in charge now, and Lando's like, fuck, and unwinnable situation. And I do also like that it gives Leia sometimes to be a bitch, because I think there are often times when Leia gets put up on a pedestal and treated as perfection, and even her bickering with Han. Leia is a fucking angry person who I think doesn't really want to admit she's more aligned with the Empire ideologically in terms of tactics than she'd like to admit. Like, if she knew she had the Force, she would fully be choking Lando out herself with no hands. Chewie would not have to be doing it.
I think she would have just hucked him through a window.
That would also be an option, but too messy. Broken glass everywhere.
Lando's storyline in this is amazing, because he's fucking around with the Empire, trying to keep his people safe, only to find out that all he did was, if anything, accelerate the process under which they're just going to be crushed under the Imperial boot.
And he ended by saying, fuck that, revolution! Yep. I love that for him.
Yeah.
Also, he has capes.
Yes.
I don't care what Edna Mode says. I love a good cape.
Well, he doesn't have superpowers, so... Yeah.
If you're not going to be flying by jet planes, capes are okay.
Exactly.
He's suave as fuck, and that's a superpower in and of itself.
Yes. And, he ultimately winds up on the right side of the revolution. The guy can wear clothes amazingly, and he's got charisma for days, so it's almost enough to forget that he has been doing some union busting just before Han showed up.
Oh, God. Lando, why? Lando deserves more, goddammit. And I don't know how I feel about the whole Donald Glover series, given that Justin Simeon got pushed out so rudely. But, like, I want more Lando. I like Lando. He's cool. He's so freaking cool. And I like how he and Han immediately start bickering like an old married couple.
Yeah, it's great.
There is no heterosexual explanation for the two of them.
You don't
If men and women can't be friends without sex getting in the way, men can't be friends without sex getting in the way. Those two have banged.
Multiple occasions and probably stealing each other's car keys back and forth.
Han got the Falcon in the divorce, and Lando's still salty about it.
Yeah. So, I gotta say, when Luke shows up, I always had the feeling that Lando was rerouting stuff in order to make it easier for Luke to get to the confrontation with Vader. Did either of you get that read? And if so, was it looking more like he was trying to help Luke, or he was trying to make it easier to distract Vader by feeding Luke to him so that it gives him some chance to get his people off?
I don't think it was something Lando had control over. I think that was the Empire having more control over it.
Which part are you referring to? When
he's making his way
When Luke
through,
arrives and the city seems
City.
Relatively deserted. Because we have to remember, at that point, Lando was already in his heel-face turn because Vader had altered the deal to take Leia and Chewie.
I don't know, maybe that was just me.
I mean, it's an interesting theory, but at this point in Lando's character development, I don't know, I think that not saving Luke would only make things worse for him.
It's obvious that Luke is being hurted. It's just...
I think he knows enough at this point to know that if Luke goes down, they're all fucked.
Right. Well, Lando thinks that if he's a bootlicker, then he'll be safe, but then he realizes that...
I mean, in his defense, 3 years ago, the Empire had a whole thing that could blow up a planet, so, like...
They're only asking for one guy.
It's a survival instinct.
Yeah.
Like, the criminals who survive are the ones who learn how to fly under the radar and to adapt in the moment, and Lando's doing the best that he can, and then he realizes, this is a situation where the deck is stacked against me, so fuck it. Let's do what's right.
The only other option he would have had was to sacrifice his entire city and its people to save his friends. But then again,
he's got one friend who he's kind of pissed off at.
Exactly.
Versus thousands of people who depend on him for, just basically staying alive and employed. And he's like, well, they're asking for one guy who I have a grudge against and took my ship, and this way I can get my ship back. And if I do this, they leave my people alone. And finds out the hard way, no, it doesn't work that way. You got to ask yourself, what am I willing to compromise? What am I thinking I'm going to get in return? Is that actually worth it? And ultimately it comes down to his realization that it's only a matter of time before there are stormtroopers on every corner making sure that everybody hits their quotas, and if not, they're just going to Pinkerton them into oblivion. He says, okay, you know what? Fuck this place.
There's some capitalism stuff in there that George did not fully unpack, and he would wait to do that until the prequel trilogy, and then everybody hated it. But you know what? There's no such thing as a good capitalist. There is no ethical existence under capitalism, and I hate it, and we need something better. This is fun. We're having fun.
Yep. Oh, I would like to go back to a point vis-a-vis the whole Skywalker drama thing. Back on Dagobah.
Yep.
When we get to Fight Cave.
I love Fight Cave.
Yes. Yoda gives Luke the 2 rules of Fight Cave. Rule 1 is you do not take your weapons into Fight Cave. Rule 2 is if you take your weapons into Fight Cave, you have to fight. Those are the only rules, because 2 there always are. No more, no less.
Oh my god.
And to go with a less jokey continuation here, this is part of Luke's fatal flaw being his lack of faith. He doesn't believe that he is enough in himself going in unarmed to face whatever unknown thing is in there. And so he takes the weapons. And that gives the dark side that permeates the cave a little deeper hold on him. This is a pattern that Luke has an unfortunate tendency to fall into, of something causes him to be worried and he lets that become fear, acts out of fear, and sows the seeds of something horrible happening. And so, Vader shows up, as he was kind of halfway expecting.
And it's visually striking that, he decapitates Vader and then the mask explodes and Luke's head is in there, but it's also a very silly expression that Mark has on his face, just that, intense stare. And also, I can't stop thinking about how that would have been achieved behind the scenes of him, sticking his head through the floor into that mask,
Well, apparently they were originally going to use, a, fake head.
Right, but it didn't look right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just he decapitates Vader, but is shown that by choosing violence, he's just going to wind up going down the same road that Vader did and become, if not a monster, at least something to be feared.
And also, subtle Vader is your father stuff.
Yeah, there's also that, which you realize in retrospect, but about the revelation.
Homer Simpson ruined it for me.
Oh yeah, people who were born too late to, the ones who started with the prequels or were shown the movie or were just told the big revelation, you really can't understand what the fuck that was for all of us sitting there seeing it happen in real time. Because holy crap, he said what? There was a disturbance in the fandom as though millions of young nerds' heads were exploding.
I remember, didn't David Prowse, spoil it in a magazine article or something? Was that a thing that happened?
Maybe, but thankfully, if he did, I didn't see that before I went in. I went in blind. Oh my god, that was I feel so bad for people who don't go in not knowing that.
Yeah, I think it was the movie's novelization that spoiled. It came out before the movie came out.
It's Alan Dean Foster's fault.
I mean, I remember in the making of process, I think I remember a story of like the only people who knew were George and Mark Hamill and like one other person. Like Mark was apparently had it whispered into his ear, and the line that was originally said was that Obi-Wan killed your father.
Yeah, it was George, Mark, Lawrence, James Earl Jones, and then there was one other person. Oh, the director, Irvin Kershner.
Well, in the words of Benjamin Franklin, 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. Because I know that there was a story about Prowse, like, leaking it, and that's part of why people say he got, quote-unquote, fired from his job and he got extra super salty.
See, IMDb says that David Prowse was unaware that Darth Vader was Luke's father until he saw the movie. And he was upset with George Lucas afterward because his physical acting would have been different if he'd known the real line.
I can kind of picture him doing the Homer Simpson thing on his way out, though.
It's a complicated thing, and there's so much lore and urban rumors and different conflicting stories. At this point, the spirit of Carrie Fisher could descend from on high and said, "I spilled the beans," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I believe you. Also, hi, big fan." She'd make an awesome Force ghost.
Right?
He would.
Shame nothing ever happened with that. Also, a quick shout out to John Williams, because that man is going hard this entire movie. John Williams doesn't ever not go hard, but this is a really big go hard or go home moment for him.
Yeah, that man never half-asses anything. If anything, he hires additional asses. So they can 2 or 3 ass everything.
And sometimes he conducts with a lightsaber. He is very cool.
Gotta love that guy.
I will say, I don't think the editing on this one was as good, and surprise, surprise, it was not edited by Marcia. I feel like a lot of my issues would have disappeared if Marcia Lucas had been the editor on this one.
She really did do a hell of a job making sure that there was good continuity between scenes in the first one, yeah.
IMDb says that she was an uncredited editor, so maybe?
After the Diane incident, I don't know how much I trust IMDb anymore.
That's true.
I can absolutely believe that Marcia would come in but maybe not give her best work, the same way I believe that Carrie Fisher would absolutely come in to script doctor the prequels but maybe not tell George to use some apostrophes now and then. So, with all of that in mind, I think the time has finally come to ask. Yes, the Force surrounds us and binds us and penetrates us, and it's in all things. But is the Force with this movie?
I think so. I think definitely. There's a lot to enjoy about this movie. Everything from Yoda and Luke on Dagobah to Lando in Cloud City to, I think the whole opening sequence on Hoth is like a little short film with Han having to go and save Luke out in the snow. I don't know, it's just that I was really engaged with that whole sequence. And of course, I mean, we find out that Darth Vader is Luke's father, and I think that just moment alone changed Star Wars forever. Had that twist not happened, I think Star Wars would not be as massive of a global phenomenon as it is today. Yeah, and to respond to what you were saying earlier, Grady, the one thing I knew before I even watched Star Wars was like Darth Vader is Luke's father. I don't know anything else except that. And it's unfortunate that I kind of grew up with that knowledge and was told that knowledge over and over again, so I couldn't really experience it for the first time. It's kind of like when I watched The Sixth Sense for the first time and I knew the twist going into it. It does ruin it a little bit, but I think there's still so much to enjoy about the movie that not having that surprise while watching it is not as huge of a disappointment as someone might think.
Thank you.
So anyway.
I was wondering. Yeah. And I have to weigh in as always. This was the movie that took what had been an amazing spectacle of a popcorn movie and gave it some real emotional and dramatic weight and consequences and made us insane for when do we get to see what happens next?
Oh, yeah.
the Force is with this one.
I feel that I have to be the dissenting voice because I recognize that this is probably the best made film out of the trilogy, and there is a lot of great stuff to it, but for me, the issues kind of break my enjoyment of it in a way that I can't do. I mean, yes, I went in with the twist spoiled for me. I watched in numerical order rather than release order, and I don't know. Maybe part of it is that I'm not as big into the battles part of Star Wars, and I like to get into the human drama and the intrigue. So the human drama is great for me, but I don't know that there's quite enough of it to make this one that I want to rewatch outside of I want to watch the other two, so I might as well do the whole trilogy. So for me personally, the Force is not with it. And if you don't hear from me again, it's because a Mandalorian has come and murdered me.
I think that's the hottest take I've ever heard you say, so congrats to you.
But your logic is completely...
Oh, wait till we get to the prequels. I'm going to get saucy.
Oh, I'm going to stay out of that.
All right. Do either of you have things you want to plug?
You can follow me on Instagram at bharrisfilm, and that's pretty much it.
Grady, do you have something not yours but related you would like to plug?
As it so happens, because I don't think I've plugged this one yet, there is a mini-series that Dark Horse Comics put out back when they had the Star Wars license called Tag and Bink Are Dead, which is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but two of the guys from Leia's ship at the beginning of the very first Star Wars movie, where they see what the way things are going, they steal uniforms off a couple of dead stormtroopers, go onto the Star Destroyer and spend the rest of the story trying to find a way to get the hell out of here, and throughout their attempts to escape, get involved in every major event from the saga. If you love Star Wars and are willing to deal with things that don't take the original series too seriously, but take it just seriously enough while also making some pretty good jokes, it's worth checking out.
And I will also say, in addition to my normal plugs, which are coming, we are still a pro-union podcast, even if maybe we're not thrilled with how the final deal shook out with SAG-AFTRA. So please keep supporting the Entertainment Community Fund, because a lot of people who weren't able to vote on SAG-AFTRA, that was because they didn't make enough money to pay their dues. And so they still need money. And also, please continue to call your representatives and mobilize for people who are being impacted by empires striking back all over the world. The people of Gaza, the people of Congo, the people of Guyana. There are too many empires striking back, and the Rebel Alliance needs to keep doing what it does best, standing strong and resisting.
And you can check out my YouTube channel, La Femme Fictionale, for feminist media critiques. Find me on Patreon, Twitter, and Instagram at FemmeFictionale, and on TikTok at FictionaleFemme. Our theme music is provided by Refractory Period, the two girls, one synth pop sensation. You can follow them on Instagram at Refractory Period, the band. To support this podcast, please subscribe to us on your platform of choice, leave reviews, and share with your friends to boost our visibility. And now, it's time to turn to the Chance Cube to decide where our journey takes us next.
3. Yes!
3 is the number, and the number shall be 3.
I was hoping for this.
Okay, so listeners, to be clear, we did this whole thing of, like, I practice media preservation, so I have a very big collection of DVDs, and I said whoever guessed closest to the number of DVDs I had was allowed to pick our next degrees, and that's Bryan. So the reason Bryan is so happy is that his degree 3 pick is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Specifically the movie.
So that is what we are going to be doing.
Holy Belgium!
We'll see you all next time. Stay safe, stay beautiful, stay strong, and may the Force be with you.